But we begin with the criminal probe into Rudy Giuliani. The feds raided his apartment and office. They seized phones and computers. Our cameras have now caught Giuliani outside of the apartment that was raided. And he's back on television doing what he did so much in the last few years. Indeed, doing what he did that gave so many clues to investigators. Talking about it all on TV, talking about himself. This is, to be very clear, exactly the opposite of what any prudent lawyer and what someone like Rudy Giuliani, a former prosecutor, would advise most people in his situation. He's also making up stuff. He's saying he was framed, and he's saying a raid that he very recently called quite professional in how the agents operated is now, he says, quote, out of control.
When something like this happens and it goes to fruition, if they can do what they just did to me, to you, they can do it to you. You don't see this for what it is, a political act?
It's not a political act as a matter of law. Indeed, it's an independent judge who signed off on at least reasonable suspicion that there's evidence of a crime in Giuliani's residences, in his apartment or office. That's how that works. That's not a political act. Now, Reuters reports that these investigators have seized over 10 cell phones and computers, searching for Giuliani's communications with over a dozen different people, including someone we reported on last week, a top Ukrainian official. Now, there was also, I should mention, a report by other news organizations and matched by NBC News that asserted last week that there was sources saying that the FBI had warned Giuliani that he would be the target of a Russian influence campaign. If you happen to catch the beat on Friday, we referred to that reporting. And we have tonight for you a correction. If we get anything off, we will always try to follow up on it. That briefing was prepared, and those reports referred to it, but it was not actually delivered, according to the latest updated information. And a second source familiar with the matter has told NBC News that the reasons might still be bad for Giuliani, and I want to mention them for precision. The reasons being a concern that giving that prepared briefing would complicate the criminal investigation of Giuliani. So whether that was good or not for him, we mention it as if it happened, but the latest information is that he was not ultimately given that briefing. Now, the investigation's ongoing. There's other reporting that people in Trumpworld are concerned about this, that they don't think of it as a frame job, as Giuliani put it, but rather, as one Trump advisor said, that it was a show of force, sending a strong message to a lot of people in Trump's world. Other things may be coming down the pipeline. And that's not all. While Giuliani has clearly been talking up his own defense, he's still enough of a lawyer to know that there are times where you do need lawyers in addition to whatever you want to say as a potential subject or more of this case. Giuliani tapping Alan Dershowitz now as a legal advisor. Joining us to kick off our coverage is former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neal Katyal and Washington Post reporter Libby Casey. Good to have you both. Neal, as we've often discussed, this individual hasn't even been charged, and any individual at any stage in the process has the right to mount their own vigorous defense, which can include criticizing aspects of the process. But walk us through the factual framework for some of the more aggressive claims Giuliani's now making.
Yeah, the factual framework, I think, looks really bad, Ari, for Rudy Giuliani. 10 of his devices have been seized, and he is being treated like a suspect and a common criminal. And it's very serious. And these devices were seized pursuant to a warrant. As you just said, that requires an independent federal judge to sign off and to say that there is probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, that it's more likely than not. And here, of course, it wasn't just any old warrant. This was a warrant to search an attorney's office, which requires approval at the highest levels of the Justice Department, maybe the Attorney General himself. And it wasn't just any old lawyer. It was a lawyer to the President of the United States. And it wasn't just that. It was also a lawyer who happened to head the very office, the Southern District of New York, that issued the warrant against him. So you had all of these barriers. They were sky high to this warrant, and yet it was executed last week. To me, what that tells me is this is an incredibly serious set of allegations that they've got, that they're evaluating right now. They would have never taken this step otherwise. This isn't the kind of thing you do to score political points or anything like that. Rudy Giuliani will be able to hire lawyers and have a defense at trial if there is an indictment. So you're not you're not going to, if you're at the Justice Department, pull one over on anyone by trying to execute this warrant. They did so for the most serious of reasons. That's what everything here suggests.
Well, and to your point, Neal, they would certainly be familiar with the kind of pushback they were going to get from someone as pugilistic as Mr. Giuliani.
Exactly. So like they knew that, they expected defense, they expect media and so on. And, the Justice Department can't comment. They can't go out and say, this is all wrong, this isn't political or something. They speak in court, they speak in their actions. And I suspect that we'll be seeing some further court activity in the next couple of months, including possibly an indictment. And I think it's very telling that, Rudy Giuliani's now defense attorney, Alan Dershowitz, is going on TV claiming, prosecutors can't search lawyers' offices and they can only do so if they're going to destroy the evidence. And, that's right up there with my other favorite lawyerly privileges, Ari, which you and I have, which is, lawyers can't get parking tickets or speeding tickets. And, we don't have to pay taxes on our legal fees unless the client is guilty. Come on. This is ridiculous. Of course, in certain circumstances, again, highly circumscribed circumstances, but they appear to be met here, you can search an attorney's office.
Yeah, as you're reminding viewers, Alan Dershowitz's view of this, whether selectively applied or not, doesn't match with the reality. Lawyers don't have an immunity, although they have some protections for the justification and the legitimacy of a process of confidential communications. That's all the law stuff, Libby. Let's talk about the other piece of this. The politics is Rudy Giuliani spent the last year, and especially the months after the election, as the face of a set of MAGA grievances and some conspiracy theories and ultimately the argument that led to the insurrection. What does it mean for this entire world and that he's in this much trouble?
Well, first of all, just have to emphasize here that this is a man who knows exactly the power of the Southern District of New York because he used to run it. And so Rudy Giuliani is perfectly aware of the power of SDNY. He's aware of their ability to try to turn an investigation into a plea deal. He's aware of the powers that they have. And where Alan Dershowitz can go on TV and make a case on TV, this is all happening behind the scenes. And as Neal said, DOJ is being tight-lipped about it, of course, and that's going to be a very different argument that they'll have to make in the court of law versus the court of public opinion. When it comes to the court of public opinion, this is a huge distraction for Republicans on Capitol Hill who want to be going after the Biden economic plan, the Biden family's plan, and instead we're once again focusing on a close ally of President Trump. And Ari, we have to remember he's not the only one, the only person in Trump world who's been touched by investigation and, in fact, convictions. I'm thinking of Michael Cohen, sentenced to 3 years in prison. Paul Manafort, sure, he got a pardon from President Trump, but he was sentenced to more than 7 years in prison. And so this just adds to that frothing water around Donald Trump. And the question is, what is on those devices? What will investigators find? Could it have bearing on questions and investigations related to January 6th or other ongoing probes? We'll see.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.